All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's see. Let's see how this all goes today. I would like to understand how many people are watching us today. And based on that, I would like to adjust the content. The stuff that I wanted to cover last week, I would like to ideally cover today. But that really depends on how many people are watching us, because that's very important. Live. See? Okay. Okay, so we have somebody here. Okay. Yeah, we definitely need more people to cover this important topic. Well, first of all, let me congratulate all of us that we are moving extremely close to the testnet v2. Lots of people finalized their keys. So the list of the keys is here. It's public info. So amazing, 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 amazing. I think we got about 19 nodes, although the applications have been in the 30s roughly. So around 30 applications. Good morning, Mr. IDK. And I mean, my wild. I mean, let's be real. Like, not that it's my wildest expectations, but pretty much the expectations have been that 30 nodes will be live closer to the mainnet, and uh, which let's assume is scheduled for let's assume Q1, Q2 of 2025. And the reason why it's potentially quote quote delayed or extended timeline is present for the mainnet launch is due to the fact that we all need to understand the importance of running a node. Right? All of us need to be really, really educated on the front. So I'm going to cover this in a bit. However, um, so let's assume we're shooting for March 2025 from the mainnet. Let's assume that's the date. Um, I expected by that time to have 30 nodes, but we already have 29 applications. Some of these applications will not be realized. I'll be very transparent about that. Some people joined, and then I don't think they will be running the nodes. They're not part of the whales necessarily. They're not qualified to be. They did not qualify themselves to be whales. However, still a good number. If I'm not mistaken, we have 25 people who qualified themselves to be whales based on the proposals. So that's a great sign. And slowly but surely, some whales are inviting additional members, and that essentially is the how to say the next logical progression. So I really believe that it's quality over quantity. Quality is so much more important, and we should start having certain conversations regarding regarding. We need to have certain conversations regarding how like how to bring more users, more players, right? And I think the framework has to be slightly different. The framework is not about let's bring 1,000 airdrop hunters, um, hypothetically, right? Thousands of airdrop hunters, which is not necessarily difficult to do with the right hashtags, with the right promotion, maybe even pay some ads, whatever, or pay some promoters. The the framework should be switched, I believe, into if we are building a government, a national, like a virtual country, a virtual nation with its own rules. Uh, we don't need users, we need citizens, and therefore we are not investors in this project or mundane users of this project trying to bring our friends. We all turn into politicians. And I know the word politician is has very negative connotations given what's happening, but uh, the politician is essentially bringing their circle of influence, right? So you become an influencer. It's just that the influencer is a bad word as well, because influencer means that there's no fucking substance anymore, right? So influencer is like, oh, I can just put a clickbait title. That's the influencer. Um, so we need leaders, right? We need leaders is also like such an upbeat word. Like, what does it mean to be a leader, right? But I think we need all of us, all whales, especially those who qualify themselves to be whales, to become politicians with the agenda of promoting the virtual nation, right? And while the word politician definitely has very negative connotations for the most part, but Churchill was a politician. Um, I'm not going to be discussing the current politics much, but they are also politicians. Whoever both candidates from both Democratic and Republican parties had real influence and represent real parties. And the fact that one candidate won and the other candidate lost is only due to the fact that the parties represented by the winning candidate won the parties represented by the losing candidate. That's all it means, right? The persona there is just a figurehead, definitely with their own will, definitely with their own capacity, and definitely with their own, um, if you really dive deep into both candidates, you will understand what I'm trying to say. Um, because some votes have been very, very questionable, at least from my perspective. But an ambassador, and Mr. IDK, you said ambassador. I love that ambassador. But ambassador does not have. Ambassador means that you're representing a project. Like these terms are so upbeat now. Same thing how Ghost is a bridge, and we can't really say that because the bridge has been the term bridge, decentralized bridge, has been compromised so many times. Now it's like it's a bad phrase now for the most part because most bridges got hacked due to internal hacks or due to social engineering hacks, and most importantly due to non-decentralized architecture that was claimed to be decentralized. So ambassador, the term ambassador represents that somebody created an agenda, and you need to deliver this agenda to your circle of influence. Again, it does not really mean that, right? But that's the connotation, right? Like, of course, ambassador, I think is perhaps the most convenient definition, the most accurate definition. But the connotation with ambassador is you don't have a say about the direction of the project. You are, for the most part, just bringing new users. Uh, the word politician, I think the term politician, I think it's slightly more like it's encompassing the fact that you actually have a say in the direction of the project. Like you change it. And when you bring your network, you and your network can change things. And since the nation of Ghost is currently inviting, it's very, very permissionless at the moment. It's inviting anybody and everybody who can, claim an NFT, essentially. Well, you don't even have to claim an NFT. You can become a node operator without claiming an NFT. But if you also want to vote in the whales, you just need to go and claim an NFT, which costs you, I don't know, 1 cent on Polygon. On Ethereum is going to be pretty expensive, maybe $10, $20, depending on the gas fees. But Polygon or it's a Avalanche or BNB, whatever, like it's very cheap. Person with the nick B, can we still qualify for running a node? So I think the deadline has been passed, right? So that's the thing. There are a couple of things to consider. First of all, you will only follow a company if you bought a stock, right? Like for example, Tesla, for example, hypothetically, I'm not affiliated. I'm not positive or negative. Just a stock, Tesla. You will not be searching through the quarterly reports, annual reports. What's happening to Elon. what type of impact the elections will have on the stock, etc. You will be reading the news passively, but try to buy one share of Tesla, and you will see how much more involved you immediately become. And that's not just my words. Warren Buffett, I believe, said something similar. Manish Pabrai, which is essentially one of the one of the biggest representatives of Charlie Munger's vision. Charlie Munger was the partner of Warren Buffett for many years. Same exact thing. You need to purchase a stock to really see what the stock is doing, right? What it's doing as far as price action and also as far as the fundamentals. Now, if you're just going to be passively learning about the stock Tesla without purchasing it, what's going to happen is you're going to, the next quarterly earning, you'll miss that. The next, split, you'll miss that. The next big contract, you will miss that. Same thing with Ghost. Let's assume the deadline is passed, because it did. If you do not qualify yourself right now for running a node, the next testnet, so this testnet V2, starting anytime now, any day. There are some little issues here and there, little fixes that need to be made. The team is, aware of everything, working tirelessly, weekends, holidays, everything. So the testnet V2 is launched. Now, testnet V3, let's assume will be done by, let's assume January. If you miss this one, because you already missed the deadline, and you don't do anything about it, and you I'll just revisit this in January, you will miss January as well, because you're not involved. So my recommendation is, whether the deadline is passed or not, if you want to be part of the validating node community, right, of Ghost Chain, which I think you should do everything on your end to try to qualify. And even if you miss V2, doesn't matter, because V3 is going to be extremely similar. The whole point of why don't we just launch, testnet V10 right away? Like, for example, why can't we just test everything internally? We'll do this super fast. And then we'll, in January, we'll just do V10. Because by the time V10 is launched, nobody will understand anything. And then after the V10, the mainnet will follow very fast after. And without any educational, component beyond, being able to run, testnet V10, you'll just start making mistakes on the mainnet, and there's nothing you can do. Mistakes on the mainnet include slashing. You lose a share. You lose your stake, a portion of a stake. Include, for council members, potentially losing a council seat for being inactive. They have not been voting, they did not run a node, and maybe the council at large decides to make a proposal that, hey, inactive council members need to go. Maybe you will be diluted by the votes because new council members will be joining. Now your vote is not as influential as it was before. Now there are, let's assume, 50 council members, hypothetically, and then by the time you come in, now it's 100 council members, and now your vote is diluted in half. You still have a vote, but it's diluted. So stuff like that, right? So for the whales, it means that you're not active, and then there's a new update. And you did not download a new update, and you have not been staking for the last 3 months. Your machine has been operating, but you are not staking. Or the minimum requirement to run a node has been increased from 1,000 GMV to 10,000 GMV, for example, and you're also not staking all this time. So you're just running the machine with thinking that you're sealing blocks, but you're not doing anything. So you're not earning your stake, so therefore you're getting diluted. So while it's not a full-time job, but if we are to create a nation and we are the founding fathers of the nation, then of course it's important to understand and track the progress of what is happening. So the sooner you can do, you came late to the party, that's fine. Just keep moving on faster, so that you're not late for the future updates. And that's actually one of the things that I wanted to discuss today as well, regarding the importance of, I covered just now, the reason why, validators, whales, councils, the reason why we all need to be very active. But let me maybe demonstrate this in a different fashion. So this is the slightly outdated Polkadot wiki on the governance. I believe this is outdated, um, but this is pretty, comprehensive because it includes so many things. And I think that's like one of the first versions of the governance. Just look at, just look at, the detail, right? Governance summary. So there's council versus public. The councils can make motions, proposals. We inherited the governance structure from Polkadot, but the public also has a say, and then the public can also participate in election and in the referenda, and contingent upon council is not unanimous on certain issues, and the council is only limited, I think, to 13 votes in Polkadot case. In a Ghost case, it's probably going to be 99 council members, but it may be minimized to something, whatever. We'll see. So now proposals, right? So how you submit proposals? Proposals submitted by the council, either through majority or unanimously, right? So that's also different. We have again a similar structure because we inherited this. So what it means is, if the council unanimously agreed to make a certain proposal, and then the referendum is going to be eased to some extent. And conversely, if just the majority, but not unanimously, that a given proposal has been submitted, then now the everybody has to vote, including the community at large, which in our case is whales, right? And just traditional validators and just average users who are not whales. So, endorsing proposals, canceling proposals, blacklist, like, look at the detail. Referent, right? This is just, the governance V1 structure. And while it sounds like, oh, it's whatever, five, well, there's some formulas even, it's only whatever, like 5, 6, 10 pages. All these, every single thing here means something. Like every single sentence means something. So there's very little water, it's lots of meat as far as content. And that's just one of them. Now, what about treasury? Boom, here's the treasury, right? Same. Launch phases, okay, so whatever. So POA, proof of authority, then followed by nominated proof of stake. We also have nominated proof of stake, which is NPOS. Okay, nominate meaning you can nominate your stakers as well. Now about validators, right? So 1,000 validators program, right? So how to onboard 1,000 validators, how to apply, etc. Right? So like all this stuff. Now check this out. Like this is important. Like I'm just like scrolling through, but every single sentence here is important. Inclusion, right? The inclusion weight accounts for 40 points. Then span inclusion, discovered, nominate, like all these terms. What do they mean? Different situations, different if statements, right? Different circumstances. Bonded. So you need to bond to have a vote, for example. Fault, what is a fault, right? Offline time, right? That's for the slashing, for example. Location, where are you from? Very important, right? Location determined by telemetry, right? So that is what we are going to be launching. The team is going to be launching also soon the map, right? So you become a node, you're running this 24/7. Now using telemetry, we can, put you on the map. And now you see yourself, right? So now you see that you're actually building this thing. Right? Now, council. Candidates will receive a score up to 50 points for voting for council members. Candidates may back as few as one candidate, or maybe they can back more. Right? So, therefore, you don't have to have a minimum stake as a council. You can simply be, in games of Polkadot, you can simply have massive influence over the community, and the community can back you up as a council. And now while you yourself do not have the stake, but you and your community do have a proper stake, and now you also part of the council potentially, right? So look at the level of detail. And again, every single little thing here matters. And the reason why Ethereum doesn't have that, because Ethereum is not, again, not bad. It's not a bug. It's a feature for Ethereum. But Ethereum does not have those governance structures because that's not what Ethereum is. Polkadot is essentially a governance blockchain, if you really think about this. And that's exactly why it has been selected as a base for Ghost. Right? So Polkadot has been an inspiration. Substrate is a framework used for the Ghost chain. Why? Because we need those different, again, councils, right? So like there's a council of validators. There's a council of orderly council members, right? There's an ethical council, for example, like, and so on and so forth, right? Maybe there's a blind council. Maybe there's like a bridging council. So different types of councils will exist, will appear, these councils will be majorly impacted by your status, right? So that's why we have status, right? How many GMVs do you have? Oh, you have this. Okay, good. Now your level is 2. Now your level is 5. Your level is whatever, 10. Based on the level, you have certain status. Based on the status, you have certain voting power, for example. You have certain access to certain decisions, right? So what I'm trying to say is very few, and I just spoke to another, actually, you can count how many times I said the word council, on this call. But like, spoke to one council member early this week, and we had a very interesting discussion. It lasted for an hour and a half, although I had to really go, but I had to extend it. Uh, and I asked, how many projects do you have where you actually can make decisions on like you can actually guide the project? Like you can actually your opinion matters, right? Of course, when I say opinion, does not mean that I think. If you think, back it up. But if you do back it up, it will matter. It will matter. I'll demonstrate the reason why I believe that our community is getting stronger and stronger by the day. And thank you so much, Wales. Thank you really, really so much for doing that. But as the council member, how many projects do you have or you're very proud of? Where your opinion actually matters. He's like, well, a few, but not a lot. I'm like, I will, beg to differ. Probably none except for Ghost. Probably none. Just because he can be, one of the stakers, but make zero freaking decisions on anything, or the votes do not have a proper framework to be accounted for, right? And it's all like happening on a piece of paper somehow, right? And then it's all completely off chain and blah 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 blah. That's nothing. Currently, ghost voting is also off chain, but we're gonna move to the on chain. We have that specific capacity, right? It's not a dream; it will happen, and you will see this on the testnet, on future not testnet v2, but future testnets, maybe v4. You will see that you actually can vote on chain, right? So no longer do we what chats we need for discussing things, but then once the discussions are finalized, now your decision can be stamped on the chain, right, and recorded historically forever, as far as how you voted and for what. And then once the specific uh, vote has been, specific referendum, specific proposal has been accepted, it's automatically included into the core of, essentially the blockchain changes flexibly, right? So name me another project that does that. Polkadot, obviously. Anything else? That's it. And Polkadot is founded by the ex-CTO of Ethereum, Gavin Wood. With right. So it's like, uh, and name me a project where you can actually guide it, right? So like that's I think how we should be treating this. We should be treating this as politicians, politicians who can write laws, politicians who can, provide, overview, politicians who can negotiate, who can bring our own networks, our own influence, like become influencers as politicians, but still be politicians, explain stuff. And what I'm doing now, I'm slowly asking people, slowly, very, very slowly, what do you need to bring more users? And of course, like it's really quality. It's so much quality over quantity because we don't really need much quantity here. So, and I get some answers, right? And that's exactly the job of a politician, as you being a politician and me being a politician. I'm asking what is needed, right? So we need to go to some people who may find it super interesting to run a node and ask them, what do you guys need? And they may say we want 30% APY, or we want, I don't know, rewards for running a node, or we want instant reward for, I don't know, for something like. And then depending on the answers, we then kind of go back to the community and discuss those things. So far, we're only discussing how to run a node, and that's good. That's good. The discussion is definitely becoming more and more meat oriented, like more factual. And I think we need to also simultaneously, aside from technical discussions, should be also introducing how to become better politicians. We either build this nation or we don't. That's it, right? And that's a nation, and that's how you should be treating it. And you're not again, you're not a citizen of this nation, because a citizen means like if you are a citizen of, of a European country, or a citizen of, I don't know, of a Latin American country, for the most part, you're passive. Maybe you vote once a year for a presidential election. That's it. Most of us don't even vote for the municipal election, right? Most of us don't know who is our representative. We have no freaking clue. We at most, and even for the presidential election, what's the what's the how many people actually come in? What's the quota? I think it's around 60%, 50%. So every other person doesn't vote, even for presidential. So citizen of a nation means something very passive. But a politician, right? An elected politician, an elected, I don't know, congressman, right? Whatever, right? That you self-elected yourself, right? By joining the project. Now has a very different meaning. Now you understand. Oh, I can actually shape the future of the project. Oh, I can find out what my followers, my future followers may want, and I can lobby that to the other council members. I can lobby that to the other whales. So I think that's kind of what we should be really kind of taking into consideration. Please let me know if you have any questions. I would like to uh, quickly get to the next topic. Continue. Oh, we do have people who watching us. Good. Okay, so we have 10 people. So we have a little bit of time, and I would like to switch conversation to a new angle that we didn't finalize last time, and that is regarding something very exciting regarding the GMV swap in the future. So let me switch the frames. Okay. Boom. Okay, you see it. Okay, so we briefly touched upon this last week, very briefly, because I didn't want to, because there were not too many people last time. So we discussed this already with some community members a couple of weeks ago, and I think it makes a lot more sense um, regarding the best mechanics. There's multiple mechanics. Both mechanics have been approved by the council so far. And the best mechanic that is the best from technical perspective, but also the best from incentive perspective at this moment. Again, this is just a thought process. It may change, but the thought process goes like this. So currently, the first mechanic is we have Route 1. Route 1 is you got your GMV token, right? That token then swapped for Ghost coin right inside of the Ghost chain. And then from there, if you want, you can then go ahead and essentially swap that Ghost coin inside of Ghost chain to the Ghost token on the Ghost DAO, right? So essentially, the trajectory goes like this. You go from EVMs to the Ghost chain, and then you go back to EVMs if you want to have an exit. Right? That's kind of like a rough idea. And it's not that there's a problem with it. It's a good idea. I mean, it's a very, very proper mechanic. But the one thing that I am extremely passionate about is permissionlessness of a network. So here, let's not forget that we have 14 million, right? So let's assume 14.5 million GMV tokens, right? Allocated to the council members, the community probably has another million, right? So, I mean, every single time, we have a call, like these numbers may be different, right? Because we don't know for a fact. Stuff is unchained. The reason why we don't know for a fact is because we don't know how many people actually claim the GMVs, right, from the community. So that's the rough distribution. Here's a problem with this, potential problem, right? Incentive problem. 15.5 million GMV tokens. Let's assume that's the start, right? So if we are, let's assume that's the pre-mine as far as Route 1. If this pre-mine exists, if a new user comes to the chain and they see 15.5 million GMV allocated in a pretty decentralized way, of course we need to allocate more than 1 million to the community. But if they see such a big pre-mine, the optics of it immediately is, well, I don't have much skin in the game because they get 1 GMV, for example, or 10 GMV, and that 10 GMV, how can that be compared to the 15.5? How is that possible? Possible. But the immediate reaction is, maybe I don't have the skin in the game, right? And that's what kills many projects, right? Now, the reason why it kills many projects is because, of course, the allocation of 15.5 traditionally is 90% goes to the whales and 10%, like, to the like whale, I mean, like investor whales, and 10% goes to the community, right? In our case, this is different, and of course, if you distribute more than 1 million, let me just change the color. If you distribute more than 1 million, if you change this number to like 15 million, and that's kind of the intent, then of course we're going to be at least 50-50, and that's way better. But now we are, let's assume, distribute that, so now we have 30 million GMVs, right? As part of the pre-mine of the Ghost chain, and then a new person comes in with 10 GMV. Optics is, oh shit, I don't have a skin in the game. That's the optics. So basically, what we're relying here on is we are relying on the fact that those 1 million or 15 million or whatever the GMVs that we have to allocate to the users, that is essentially our pretty much lost chance to attract users, right? So that's our lost opportunity. And since it's to some extent possible to game the airdrops, right? Then the question is what type of quality are we going to attract? And of course, we can put all types of filters. There are massive solutions around this. So don't you think that this is like, oh, that's a really bad and unsolvable problem? Very definitely solvable, just slightly intricate, but definitely solvable because still good architecture. But that's a thing, right? That's kind of something to think about. That if we are to allocate again, 15 million from the 30 million, 15 will go to the users. That's pretty much the last chance to attract new users because the new users after that, after the mainnet is launched with 10 GMV, will potentially find not enough incentive to join. That's it. Yes, like that's pretty much it. And that's like the question: should we be limiting ourselves like that or not? And also from mechanics perspective, the swaps are slightly more complicated. The GMV needs to travel to the Ghost chain, and then from Ghost chain, then kind of you can then swap out. You need to find the liquidity on the side of the bridges to exit. Like, again, it's not bad, it's not unsolvable, but it is what it is. Conversely, not that Route 2 is better, but it's just different, and both have their pros and cons. But more and more, I'm personally tending more towards Route 2. And here's the thing with Route 2. So let me change the color. So going back to like orange color. Yeah. So for the Route 2, what happens is slightly different. So you do have GMV token on the EVM, right? So the EVM chains. Then what happens is you get that GMV token swapped for P-Ghost. And P-Ghost is not like it says token, but it's not really a token. It's an entry in the database. It's an entry in the blockchain. So it's essentially your ticket to then get eGhost. So notice how all that exists on the EVM. So you never leave the EVM chain. So you're always on the EVM. And then the question is, oh, okay, but what does it have to do with the Ghost chain? Well, once you have your eGhost, that eGhost as part of the Ghost DAO, you can wrap that eGhost into Ghost. Well, actually, sorry. Let me erase it. So you can swap that eGhost or wrap that eGhost into the Ghost token on that EVM, and then that Ghost token then can be further bridged right to the Ghost point. So let me just explain this one more time. So you have a GMV token. The GMV token goes into P-Ghost. P-Ghost goes into eGhost. eGhost goes into Ghost. That's all EVM. We are still on Ethereum. We are still on Polygon. We are still on Avalanche. And now that Ghost now can be swapped for the Ghost coin. And that's on the Ghost chain, right? So this is Ghost chain and this is Ethereum. Now, can anybody tell me what does this mean for the pre-mine? Anybody in the comments, if you guys watching this, if you guys understanding, or maybe ask questions what I meant by all this. But the question is, what happens to the pre-mine in this situation? Remember, the pre-mine in route number 1 is, let's assume, 30 million. What's the pre-mine in route 2 on the ghost chain? If you guys listening, you should be guessing something. There's some delay as well with the answers. I'll give like 2 minutes to think about, maybe ask me questions. Okay, so I think maybe you guys don't have opinions. Maybe something's not clear. Thing is, with this specific route, with this specific type of swap, you get pretty much zero pre-mine. And now the optics looks really good. Now, it's not going to be 100 as zero pre-mine. It's probably going to be 100 ghost pre-mine. And that 100 tokens will be allocated to the validators. Who are the validators? Well, those validators from the testnet who proved themselves to be good validators will be allocated like 1 ghost per whatever, something. Like the lower the better, to make sure that this pre-mine is extremely tiny. And then the question is, how many chains in the world are launched with almost zero pre-mine? So Zafira, the question was, what will be the pre-mine? So how many ghost coins will be included in the essentially pre-mine of the ghost chain if we are to go with route 2? That's the question. In route 1, the answer is 30 million ghost coins. In route 2, most likely we can lower it down to around 100 ghost coins. Well, depending on how many validators we have. So let's assume we have 100 validators, 1 ghost coin per validator, that's 100 ghost coins. If we have 200 validators, let's assume, 1 ghost coin per validator, that's 200 ghost coins. Question is, how many blockchains in the world started with almost zero pre-mine or zero pre-mine? Well, 2, Bitcoin and Monero, that I know of, that I'm aware, started with zero pre-mine. We are not going to start with zero pre-mine. We can't. The reason why we can't is because we need to swap. So in order to make this swap right there, let me like make it so it's a different color. In order to make this swap from ghost token to ghost coin, this swap here, we need validators. And this is like chicken or the egg type of problem. You cannot have validators. You cannot validate this swap unless you have validators. So therefore, we need, unfortunately, to have a minimum amount of ghost coins in the pre-mine to make sure that validators have enough ghost for the fees, to pay the gas fees, essentially. Right? That's what needs to happen. So unfortunately, that's the case. However, that 100 ghosts, remember, we're starting with the ghost price of $1, right? So that's like $100 pre-mine. How many chains have $100 pre-mine? Right? So we're not as clean as Bitcoin, we're not as clean as Monero, but we're very freaking clean given the circumstances. So of course, this is something that I'm personally contemplating for the last couple of weeks. I already ran this by some community members, and so far, from my understanding, the feedback was pretty positive. Um, and then I kind of went ahead and started started discussion with some potential whales. I'm talking to whales from Latin America. I'm talking to whales from potential whales from Latin America. I'm talking to potential whales from Southeast Asia. I'm talking to some whales from Balkan region. So these whales, it's one thing when I am discussing with them the opportunity over 30 million pre-mine, because I had conversations with them before. It's a totally different conversation. And again, that's why I say that we all need to be politicians in a positive way of that word, like meaning actually influencers, right? So with the almost zero pre-mine, the type of conversation is so much different. It's so much more open. It's so much like, oh, so it's democratic. Oh, it actually is permissions. Oh, you guys are actually bullshitting anybody. This is actually like almost zero. Of course, the council members, early contributors, that P ghost can be swapped. So at some point of time, that P ghost will be swapped for the ghost coin, thus adding to the allocation. Thus adding to the circulating supply of ghost coins. Absolutely, that will take place. But for that, certain certain TVL has to be traded through the Ghost DAO first. So there are certain if statements that will prevent massive swap out of P-Ghost and into Ghost immediately. Like there are certain limiting factors that will prevent the early contributors, including all whales who earn, like anybody who earn any GMV, there will be certain restrictions preventing all 100% of P-Ghost holders to just swap their whole stakes into Ghost Coin. So that swap will be very, very, very distributed, very dispersed across time and also across users. Thus, once that supply of P-Ghost floods the Ghost chain, that dilution of the early contributors who came for the zero pre-mine is not going to be that critical. Rule of thumb, high level, at any point of time, let's assume only 10% of P-Ghost compared to the circulating supply can be flooding the chain. So the dilution by 10% is not 0%. It's definitely dilution, but it's only by 10%, making it very fair for everybody. So that's fair for the contributors. That's fair for the early adopters. And in this case, if you're going to proceed with the second route, again, it also has some negativities, right? So there's pros and cons on both sides, potentially. Although I don't see many cons on Route 2. But the biggest benefit of Route 2, in my opinion, so far, and we could be wrong, that's why we need to start discussing those things, is an ability to bring early adopters down the road. Because most likely with Route 1, those who participate in the 30 million airdrop total, that's pretty much the community. Like expecting new members at that point of time may be slightly hopeful, too hopeful. Because if I have 10 GMV, I'm not going to be fighting against 30 million. Conversely, here with zero pre-mine, lots of early adopters will join because it's a fresh chain. It's a fresh freaking chain. So we'll be able to attract developers. We'll be able to attract technical nerds. We'll be able to attract Bitcoin maxis and crypto maxis and Web3 maxis, etc. And in order for somebody to enter into the Ghost chain, they have to go through the Ghost DAO. So they have to go to the Ghost DAO and purchase the token on the Ghost DAO. Only then they can swap that into the Ghost coin. So it's a massive filter for early adopters as well. If they really care about Ghost, they need to purchase. So they need to spend some money. Right? So that way it just solves a number of issues. So this is something that question like architectures like this is something we need to start discussing in the whales. And conversations such as how can I, how to bring new users. I think that is not even the right question, right? Because how to bring new users, like tell me how. It means that you didn't try yet, right? You're not a politician. You're just a citizen wanting to help. But the politician type of question will be, I already spoke to 5 people and they are unsure, and here's what they are unsure about. Let's try to address that, right? So, and how can we address that? And these discussions should take place within Ghost Whales. So, not in PM, but specifically within Ghost Whales. So everybody is learning. So we are learning together on what are the potential pitfalls against some members not joining, right? And what do they need to join. And again, it's quality over quantity, really quality over quantity. On this positive note, I would like to end the call. See you guys next week. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please write them in the Ghost Whales. Ghost Whales, you guys are fucking amazing. Thank you so much. Let's keep running this note. This is great. You guys are shaping the community. Kitsune, Dr. K, um, Pierre, Cosmos, Starman, Scientio. You guys rock. You guys are extremely helpful with responding to questions. Pietro, Meta Nomad, um, Jamal Freedom, JML NFT. You guys are extremely, and more, somebody that I did not mention yet. You guys are extremely persevering with launching a node, and trust me, it will pay off. You're learning so much now. The learning curve is so steep for you guys, for all of us. We are learning so much, and that's, we learn, and knowledge is power, and then we become better politicians. So thank you so much for perseverance. Thank you so much for all the amazing support. Now the community is really becoming slowly a community. Let's do this, guys. It goes with trust.